Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Drew, and I am here to simply share what I learn about rebranding myself and what it means to actually figure my shit out. Today, we're going to be talking about how to not make so many regretful decisions. So, our 20s are interesting. They're ridden with decisions that we wish we could take back at any moment. So, whether it's dating, social scenes, money, we make the worst possible decisions we could, and more times than not, it's because we don't think things through enough. And so second order thinking, which is the topic of today's video, is how you get around this. So second order thinking is thinking in terms of the interactions of the effects of the decisions that we make. In shorter terms, it's basically asking, and then what, after we initially come up with the decision that we want to make. So before I get into this, last night I actually went to a concert, and for probably the first time since I've turned 21, I actually did not drink before I went out, because normally, with me being the socially anxious introvert that I am, typically I would always cling to alcohol as a means to basically relax and actually have fun in a particular environment, because I was always worrying about what everybody else was thinking. It dawned on me that I used this principle last night because I thought more about how I would feel today, so the day after, if I would have drank. Because normally in the past, what happens is I drink and then it affects me for days after. It affects my mood, my productivity, and then overall for a couple hours of like slightly more fun than what I already would have had, it's like sacrificing days of more fulfillment that I could have had because I actually got things done. Second order thinking is something that'll help you get ahead of literally 99% of the population. And it's really useful because most people only think based on whatever their initial reaction to a potential decision is. So this is also what it means to actually be a step ahead of everybody else. A prime example of this is whenever an athlete in like a big game situation makes a play and all you can think about is how the hell did he know to do that in that situation? That's because the best athletes in the world all think from this perspective. They just do it rapidly and insanely fast because that's what they've trained for. However, it's also important to understand that a lot of the best decisions that we can make for ourselves are things that are first order negative. So basically the first decision seems negative, but second order positive. So the effect or the next decision that you could have possibly made is actually better. In terms of dieting, the initial decision to not eat something because you know you will go over on calories is considered a first order negative. However, the outcome, the effect is that you stay on track to your diet and you're one step closer to getting to the ideal weight or body composition that you want to. So that is one way to frame it. And the last thing to know is something like this does take experience, and it takes you going through life and starting to think about things in this way in order for you to really nail down the best way to approach how you make certain decisions. So this is a story about failed second order thinking. So in the British colonial era, whenever they had basically owned India, they were having a problem with cobras. And so they thought, let's incentivize people to kill the snakes and then we will give them money in return for bringing us the snakes' heads. Well, what they didn't think about and what actually ended up happening was the people of India that were turning in these snake heads were actually breeding them on their own so that they could kill these snakes and then in turn get more money. What ends up happening from that is they actually end up in a worse position than they were before, and now there's more snakes, more cobras there, and it's just infested everything. And this is why second order thinking and thinking about the next steps is so critical in the bigger life decisions that you make, because most of the time the better option is actually it requires you to dig a little bit deeper than what you normally think you would. So how can we apply this? So first, just when you make a decision, ask yourself, and then what? This puts you into a place where you have to actually consider what is going to happen after the decision that you make. For me, in dating in my early 20s, I was a really, really shitty guy. And I did girls dirty, and if I got hit on at like a bar or I saw somebody that I wanted to hit on, I would immediately make that my decision rather than thinking of the implications of what that meant for the other girl or girls that I was seeing at the time. And all this did was it made me emotionally unavailable, and it just ruined any chance of an actual healthy relationship that I could have. And so whenever I actually started thinking to myself, and then what, it got me into a better headspace to realize that nothing good actually ever happens from any of that. And I actually needed to take myself completely away from the dating scene altogether for a little bit in order to reestablish a connection with myself and who I actually needed to be in order to get the things out of life that I wanted. The next thing you can do, I call it time hopping, but it's also another popular framework in the self-help space, but I call it time hopping. And basically, how is this decision going to affect me in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, and so on? This is more useful, I found, for overthinking. So if I'm overthinking something, I can look at it like, is this going to matter in 5 minutes? It might. Okay, what about 5 days? It has a chance. 5 weeks? No. So in that perspective, then it gives me an idea of how important is this thing actually, and how important is it in the current context or in the current situation that I'm in. The next thing that I advise is creating a physical model of your potential decision. So by physical model, I just mean getting it out of your head and onto something. This could be notebook, you could draw it out. It could be even just an Excel sheet, but whatever it is, you need to get it onto something that you can see from a bird's eye view, because from that, you will be able to make more connections to other things, and then you'll end up actually coming up with more possible solutions or outcomes to a decision based on the things that you see right in front of you. This leads into my next point, which is look for connections. In a business, a lot of times just one manager change can actually drastically impact the rest of the business. So I worked at a gym through my college years, and we had this one really awesome manager. The gym itself was not ran well, but because of donors and everything else, they were kept up the money because, tax reasons for wealthy people and stuff. At some point, she didn't get a raise that she knew she earned, and then they told her she was going to get, and so she ended up leaving the company. Well, from there, about 70% of the staff that was there and had been there for about 2.5 to 3 years all left within about a 2-month span, which put the business in a bind, which then made service quality lower because they had to train more people and they just didn't necessarily want to put the resources into training or just paying people more to stay there. So that is one way that you start to see connections between all these other departments and how these things interact with one another. So bad management judgment on what actually needed to be done and who actually deserved to be there and needed to be there to keep the whole team together, not fulfilling what they said they were going to do on that one particular thing, ended up leading to a butterfly effect of everybody else leaving, and then nobody was actually really happy. The one thing I want anybody watching this that's made it this far to get out of this video is the importance of actually analyzing the decisions that you are considering, but then asking yourself, and then what? What are consequences of these things, and how does that apply to everything else in my life? Because everything in your life is interconnected, and when you start to see things that way, you're going to be able to make better decisions and then stop regretting the decisions that you do make, so you can ultimately get to be the person that you want to be. So if you found value in this video, follow me on Twitter at Drew Dowd. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things. I want to hopefully start more conversations with some of you and people that might be struggling with some things similar to what I have. So with that being said, figure your shit out.